the main howlers at modern monetary theory, who call people like you a hack, have said these people are going to make us, all homeless. You can't spend money, endlessly. You'll jack up inflation, blah, blah, blah. And those people are kind of right now pointing to the modern monetary theory folks and saying, look, we've spent trillions of dollars during COVID and we have inflation. Without knowing everything, I don't really think it's due to all the money we've spent in COVID, but that's what they're saying. They're also saying, and I'm going to play this clip. It might make you cry or it might make you laugh. Here's MSNBC's take on this.
Steve, the fact that that the recovery has led to inflation is not a surprise, right? This is not inflation in isolation. It is all part of the economic recovery, and the recovery is going well. But at this point, prices are bad. They're getting worse. What the administration, what can they really do?
I think they have to wait this out. I think there's something of a concern here about what's happening with energy and oil production in this country. Certainly more oil production in America would help the situation, though, of course, OPEC is also cutting back.
Okay, Jason, Steve might not, but I am going to laugh at this idea that the infrastructure bill is going to help with inflation. All it's going to do is create more jobs. We don't have enough people to fill our current jobs. And this argument, there are going to be jobs at higher wages. Higher wages are one of the contributing factors to inflation.
Look, you want to distinguish between two types of spending. One is sending everyone in the country checks at a time when we couldn't make quite enough for all of those people who got the checks. And I think that has contributed to the price increases we've seen.
I love how she's like, higher wages lead to inflation. God damn it. Don't give those Burger King workers any more money. Does higher wages? Is that why it's, prices are being jacked up, Steve?
So I want to break this down into a couple different paths because there's not one answer to this question. Okay. And they addressed one thing, and that's the oil. Oil, I've said this on your show a bunch of times. Oil is the one thing that is ubiquitous in everything we do, from the computer I'm working on, the plastics, I have petroleum-based products to make them, all the way through to the gas we drive our cars and fuel our planes and fuel our trains and so forth. So anything that impacts price, all that, every bit of it. And so when you think about the oil, anytime there's a price raise in oil, it's going to impact a bunch of other costs of production, the actual cost of production, the food cost for food, all the cost of producing a given product is going to go up by the increment that the average spend on the oil goes up. Now, that's not a law. The fact is they've got a price point that they want to make. And so they've subsequently raised the price of the product up. Instead of taking the hit themselves, they raise the price of the product up so they can keep their profit margin at a level that they want, so they can keep their investors happy, et cetera. So this is a little bit of it's not some God-breathed thing that happens. Oh no, we have to. They've made a choice that they're going to maintain a profit margin at X, and no matter what, they're going to pass that cost on. And so that will create inflation.
So you're talking about if the price of oil goes up, the grocery store, the whomever store that oil, it affects them because whatever they're selling involves oil. Since their price goes up, they're passing that on to the consumer.
That's correct. That's correct. So that's one. This is a ubiquitous thing, or I should say, it is in everything. Petroleum products are literally in everything. And so a price rise in that is going to cause a price rise. That's number one. Number two, we've just been shut down. No matter how many times it didn't change now, and it probably won't change for another 6 months. We were literally shut down for almost 18 months. And when you think about being shut down, literally like the gears coming to a halt or really slow moving, okay? When the demand comes back, hey, it's like, imagine when they open the doors to a concert and all the kids come pouring through the door running, right? There's no way they can handle that initial surge because it's like, holy crap, bedlam. People are getting stomped on, run over, etc. Okay. But after everybody gets in, it calms down. It's okay. Well, in this case, everybody was trying to bust out. They had been trapped in the house for so long. and people wanted things, and there weren't things there to buy because the shelves weren't filled, the supply chains had broken down. And this is another decision tree that has multiple layers to it too. Our ports have one crane, a lot of them have one point of pulling the stuff off of the ships. These ships are sitting there in harbors for days. The people that are on there, the laborers that are on there, all of that. I mean, the wages that they're making or not making, because many of them just get a flat fee per shipment. And it doesn't matter if they're stuck on that boat for 3 days, they're getting the same exact price for their time. And so delays in shipping.
And the delays in shipping are from the pandemic, because most of these companies, they just assumed demand would remain low, so they didn't make enough products. So now there's this backlog.
It's not just that, it's the actual delivery, the supply chain itself delivering them. There's not enough workers to pull the stuff off the docks. There's not, and even if they had 1 million workers, there's only like one crane there to do it, the way I'm being told this. So the ports are not prepared to handle this huge deluge now that everybody wants stuff again.
And that's because those workers didn't come back.
That's right. That's part of it. The other part of it is simply that even if they did come back, they don't have the physical mechanical infrastructure to handle a reopening like this. They had it so that if everything was just going smooth, okay, we got 5 ships coming in, okay, keep them coming, that kind of thing. But no, now all of a sudden it's like every ship in the world's coming into the port, and these things are you can see pictures of some of these port cities where the boats are just backed up for miles. I mean, just crazy. And they keep circling, kind of like you're flying over the airport and you keep circling and circling, taxi, whatever. So that's a huge deal. The other thing is this, and this is one of the ones that I think people really need to learn because it is the most challenging. None of what I've said has anything to do with spending money. You notice that, right? I haven't mentioned one thing about the amount of money in circulation, nothing, because it's not the point. The point is that people have pent-up demand. They have desires for things. They go, they want a burger, they show up, they're out of burgers. Whatever the heck it is, it's not there. Or there's only a few of them. So you get this bidding war. So prices start going up from that as well. That's another factor.
Which is the old, if you have less supply, more demand, the suppliers are going to jack up the prices.
But what they'll say, and my good friend Bob Hockett said this in shorthand the other day. I picked up the phone, I said, Bob, are you sure of that? He said, I was just playing fast and loose. This, but the fact of the matter is that the old refrain saying too much money chasing too few goods is not really the case. What happens is that if you and I still only have the $5 in our pocket that we had the day before, you and I are not going to be able to buy the things we want. However, if we spend $10 million and it goes to a rich guy, he's only going to buy 1 or 2 of those things because he doesn't need 20 million refrigerators. So he only buys 1. So there's not going to be any kind of inflation on that. However, if I give everybody that amount of money and everybody's demand is ready to be met, if there's not supply to meet it, when Paul Ryan and Alan Greenspan fought famously about Social Security's insolvency, Paul Ryan was like, don't you think if we privatize Social Security that it'll be more solvent? In a rare moment of truth telling, Alan Greenspan said, there's nothing to prevent the government from paying any bill it wants to pay. It just conjures them up. The issue is, do we have the real resources there for purchase? Wow. Alan Greenspan spoke MMT accidentally.
Well, basically their whole argument, I would assume, is if you raise interest rates, there will be less demand because more people, a lot more, the people that right now could afford to borrow or whatever will stop borrowing at such a pace, less demand, inflation goes down. Do I have it right?
Well, what happens if hypothetically I raise prices on things? Won't you stop buying it anyway?
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's just a different pass-through mechanism. In this case, it's interest rates. Warren Mosler had a podcast with us that is absolutely must listen to. If you're interested in understanding how interest rates impact inflation, check out our interview with Warren Mosler on Macro and Cheese. It's absolutely must listen to stuff. And I also did a very, very fantastic interview with TCU senior economist John Harvey on this very subject. So definitely a lot to learn. There's a lot of options there. Stephanie Kelton in her blog post, the lens, wrote a thing about looking at inflation a little differently, because inflation ultimately is, if let's say the workers do get more in pay, right? Let's say they do. It's a transfer of wealth now. We're talking about, we're increasing. Inflation is going to those workers. This is not a crime. We want pay to go up. Otherwise, the cost of goods, if it goes up, that means the employer has to eat the overage, the change, right? Most employers, I mean, look, do you think Jeff Bezos would miss $10 billion? Do you think he drops that in the toilet when he's smoking a cigar in the morning? Well, I mean, these guys, this money is like nothing to them. Okay. They just making it accidentally. They're sitting there and it's just making it. It's just happening. And so for regular people, though, that's not the same thing.